to on the, while they're watching.
Sure.
Go to live. Good morning, Michael Burgio.
Good morning, everyone. Michael Burgio here with Mark Novak, special guest Tate, and Kristen.
Marion.
Marion. For Morning Minutes to talk about a lot of the north-south change where people we're hearing a lot. People go New South Wales, Queensland, and I think you guys are the best to speak to because you're doing deals on either side of the border. Welcome.
Thank you.
I'll bring up.
How do you do deals on either side of the border if you can't cross the border?
We get our car, we wrap it in bubble wrap, and we sneak across.
So we've got a little bubble, and we're allowed to go, say, 20 minutes south of the border and about half an hour north of the border. And that's our bubble that we're allowed to go to. If we go any further south, we're not allowed back into Queensland.
Right. And we get a lot of agents watching. So you've got your license in New South Wales and license in Queensland, or if you're...
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Was it difficult in Queensland to get it?
They give you a mutual recognition, so it's quite easy to apply and get all that through. So that part's probably the easy part. The hard challenge is learning the different contractual agreements between the two states because they're completely polar.
Yeah.
Wow.
For example, because we get a lot of viewers always looking to buy out there. What are some differences or anything different to buying in New South Wales that you should look out for in a contract, or just some variations?
Yeah, really good question. So in Queensland, we get offers, put forward where they present that on a contract straight away with terms and conditions. So it's a complete contract. The agent actually prepares the contract, including, body corporate searches, etc. So very, very different presentation for a buyer where they're like, oh, wow, we've got to sign something. But they do have cooling off periods. They do have pest and building conditions, finance conditions, and that provides time for the purchaser to provide, I guess, the contract to their solicitor and look through what they've signed. But it exchanges on the day if both parties are in agreement.
Okay. And cooling off standard 5 days, is that quite similar? Obviously, depending on what's negotiated, but there's not do they lean towards 10 to 15 days up there, or very similar to 5 or unconditional?
Also, there's a cooling off period, which is your standard cooling off, very similar to New South Wales. You've got typically a finance condition of 14 days. So it does provide the buyer with a bit more time for due diligence, and also pest and building is quite common as well with a 7-day clause.
So you exchange and you've got 14 days to withdraw if finance doesn't go ahead.
Correct.
And do many people get that taken out, like an unconditional 66W, or is that in there quite often all the time?
Yeah, rarely they do take it out other than auction, obviously. So generally speaking, the contracts are filled with more conditions. And in fact, interestingly enough, because of the process in Queensland, our Northern Rivers process has changed an awful lot. So we operate very similar, except for the agent signing contracts on the Northern Rivers too. So our typical contract exchanges with a finance condition, 14 days, or a 7-day pest and building, because that's considered the norm where we are on the Northern Rivers, which is really unusual when you look at what you guys do down there.
Perfect. And I'll just bring up on the map so people can see where you are. So what do you want to talk, Mark, while I bring this up?
So you guys are experiencing a lot of activity, touch wood and thank God, because our friends in Melbourne are having a bit of a hard time with lockdown. But it seems to be a bit of a trend that we're seeing. I call it like a spiral. Or like a ripple effect, that there's people that are selling out of the CBD of Sydney and they're buying in Mossman, North Shore, that outer run. Then those Mossman, North Shore, Neutral Bay people are selling and they're buying on the northern beaches. And then the northern beaches people are selling and then they're buying in Gosford, Terrigal. And it seems like there's this outward ripple effect out of Sydney CBD, which is heading towards you guys. Are you seeing that?
Absolutely. It's amazing. It's a really good question. It just keeps moving further north. So for example, last weekend, we had an auction at One Creek Street at Hastings Point, which is on the Tweed Coast, about 15, 20 minutes south of Benora Point there. Beautiful position, walking distance to the creek. And some buyers from the Central Coast purchased that. So exactly what you're saying, Mark. And then same thing on the weekend. Buyers come up from Sydney. They've got to wear masks, gloves, and sanitize their hands prior to an inspection. They bought a property off market from us pre-portal. And again, they're directly from Sydney, and they did the 8-hour drive. So absolutely.
That's another question. There you go. That's an answer. 8 hours to get to you guys from Sydney.
I was Googling it as you said that. 8 hours minutes. DY to Brown Point. So talk us through a little bit of your market through their median price. And we were discussing just off air previously where your area has a lot of different aspects and micro markets within, where you've got the beach, it looks like the lagoon, the city. How do you see that differ in clientele purchasing and just in price difference sort of high to low?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Surprisingly, in our marketplace, Tweed Coast, so Kingscliff, which is the heart of the Tweed Coast, you can buy still a 2-bedroom unit across the road from the beach. So say 300 metres from the beach for low 400s. The median price for Benora Point for residential housing is in that sort of around that mid-6s now. Really, really affordable. And rent returns are phenomenal, aren't they, Kristen?
Yeah. The last probably, let's say 2 months. We're still in the middle of COVID. Our average rent's gone from, I reckon, 2 years ago to about from $480, and it's now sitting at about $668 on average. So the new ones coming in, because you can buy a property around here, 3 to 4 bedrooms in the mid 5s to mid 6s, say, and you'll rent that out for $650, $700 a week.
So what yield does that show? Because we've got Luke, a buyer's agent, on now watching, and he loves Queensland. I know.
Just on that, go Queensland from Luke. Philip says he's watching from the UK. Hey, Lisa Novak says you guys look dapper.
Yeah.
And,
hey, Lisa.
Hey, Lisa.
And Amal says, g'day. Over to you guys.
I think it's interesting, actually, that we got someone here from the UK. Welcome. And
Or international.
we had three buyers last week from the UK on one property. I've never seen it before.
No.
May not ever see it again, but it just shows that a lot of them are coming either into the country or alternatively, the old expats coming back, I guess, and trying to re-establish, because why wouldn't you when we live in such a beautiful country?
Yeah.
Is it temporary, guys? Is this it's a sea change, it's a tree change that people are seeking. It's as a result of COVID, you guys are doing better. It's a result of COVID that our team at Novak is doing better, being on the beaches with a sea change, tree change. Is this temporary? Is this forever? Our price is going to then bust. I've got the bubble wrap behind me. What do you reckon?
Look, every good market has its end, Mr. Novak. But I think generally speaking, we get the lowest density population from here as far north pretty much as you want to go till you really get into Queensland. So we've got a rental crisis in the Northern Rivers. It's been marketed as that even in the newspapers and in the print media right through to social media in the last few years. And that's been a big driving force.
Sorry, undersupply or oversupply rental crisis?
Phenomenal undersupply.
Okay. And how is development? Is the council quite friendly? Is that why there's not many new developments being built? Or do you have a council that are anti-buildings?
We're very green in the Northern Rivers. I've got probably a few members watching me right now, so it's a lovely council.
And guys, we're in Sydney. We always like to bash you up, whether it's football, whether it's real estate, Queensland versus New South Wales. I've typically said to my clients, you don't buy in Queensland because you are going to get. And I know you guys aren't Queensland. I know you guys are New South Wales, but I'm right on that border. But you could represent both sides. Which is even more interesting.
The state of origin.
with capital growth, double-ended. It's a two-ended question. A double-edged sword, I should say, double-ended. It's one is would you apply even where you are? Would you say you got to buy New South Wales is better than Queensland for capital growth? And overall, as a whole state, both states, capital growth. Can you comment on both those things?
I think they're so different, Mark. It's a really good question. We predominantly sell right on the tip of the northern New South Wales corridor, so obviously we're probably a little bit biased with that. But I think it's good to spread it out and have them on both sides of the camp, as they say. The benefit of Queensland is the reduced stamp duty, without a doubt. So the balanced portfolio is definitely a winner. Winner, chicken dinner.
What's stamp duty? So New South Wales roughly 4%. What's it as a rough percentage? Queensland, the stamp duty.
Look, I don't like to be a generalist, but it can be almost sort of like you're looking. Say, for example, a stamp duty for New South Wales is 20 grand. You know, Queensland can be coming in between 11 and 13.
Yeah,
half.
Yeah.
And
wow,
yields as 5 to 6% on residential. Queensland sort of, and the New South Wales 2 to 3. Is that what you see?
What do you think, Kristen?
For the stamp duty, you mean?
No, you're talking about stamp duty.
Rent, for the rent.
Oh,
rent yields more so.
Just the general yield, because that's what people balance. They go, I want New South Wales for capital growth, but I'll look north because I got a few apartments in DY. I want rental yield.
I reckon northern New South Wales, to be completely honest, right on the edge. I mean, we have the hospital at Tweed Heads. It's funny, we have everything from $300 a week right through to $1,000 a week here. Queensland, the main bit of Queensland we have is sort of across from the Gold Coast Airport. So we only go about that far, say Tugun, Palm Beach. And then, I mean, that can be really high end as well. But northern New South Wales, I think's the spot.
Trevor,
and so percentage wise, like rate of return on your investment, you guys wouldn't notice that much difference where you are between the New South Wales and Queensland rentals. No. It's more all of Queensland. It's more all of Queensland and all of New South Wales. So what we see when we're bagging Queensland out, what we see is we always say you'll get maybe a 3 or 4% return on your investment. So if it's 500,000, you'll get a 300-400 a week rent. But if it's in our area, but it will double every 10 years. So guys, don't chase that rent because the value is going to double every 10 years, which is which is almost 8 or 9 or 10% a year. It's going to go up on average over 10 years. That's what it's done for 50 years. Yeah. Now, that's what we've done in Sydney. But are you guys seeing, because you're on the border of New South Wales and Queensland, how much would your properties, how long does it take for your property values to double on average? Is it 20 years? Is it 5 years on an average?
That's a really good question.
Did you say screw Sydney? Did you just say screw Sydney?
Hey, I'm a Novacastrian, Mark.
Oh, my God.
I know, how dare she, right?
Sydney, I can't believe that.
That's a really good question. So in the GFC, it still blows me away to say this, but you could have bought a pretty average house. I know we're not allowed to swear. There's another term I could think of calling it for mid 200s. That same house now would be worth 500 plus. So we have seen pretty much a double, but it's probably more around that 10 to 13 year more so than the traditional 10 year. But the rent yields are probably if you do the multiplier on it, are probably 5 to 10 grand better off in terms of your ratio than what you guys are getting. So, for example, we've got properties at the moment, 600,000 that are renting for 650 or 700 a week.
Where do you when you initially get a call from a prospective buyer, because I'm sure you get people who they don't really know the area. They know they want to buy up north, but they've really got no clue. What's your first couple of questions to them so you're not just throwing mud, seeing what sticks? So an investor calls you saying, I live in DY, I want to buy up north. I've never been there. Where do I start? Like, how do you sort of help qualify to know what area? Because realistically, anyone living here, a lot of the price points will be very desirable. So what are your first couple of leading questions to help you identify where you should even send them? Otherwise, you're sending them, here's every property we got, let me know sort of thing. Good luck. They're everywhere.
Yeah. Well, from a buyer's perspective,
Yeah, I guess buyers, generally speaking, even though it's surprising, they have done a lot of research online or social media, which is good. So they have a general area mapped out. But we just ask them what's the most important, and probably what Mark touched on is really relevant. Capital growth. Is it a property to live in? So, interestingly enough, I'd say that the statistics would be probably 2 to 3 out of 5 investors are buying to ultimately live in. So then it becomes a lifestyle choice. Obviously a returns has some relevance, but it's still a hard buy. So that sways them massively on whether they want to see change or semi-rural or what they're looking for.
It's a lot of investors. The first thing they say is, we'll semi-retire up there. So that's the thing. It's a lot of investors will buy it to eventually live in. So, do you want to be near the beach? Do you want to be near the creek? Do you want to be... I get that all the time. I get a lot of turnover in rentals because they'll buy 2 to 5 years before they move up. Okay. So there's a lot of that.
That's but if it was interesting.
So it's a retirement sort of thing for us up here as well. So there is a bit of turnover with people moving in. We get a lot of Melbourne people, a lot of Sydney, a lot of Newcastle.
The end game.
Yeah, it's the end. Yeah,
that means
they call it God's waiting room, Mark.
Now that's what Lisa calls me. Trevor Martin said for $1 million, $34,000 in duties in Queensland for owner occupier, plus $7,000 for investors on top of that, or plus $70,000 for foreigners on top of that. They whack the foreigner, hey?
Yeah.
70? 70. It looks, so it's 70. Okay, so that's...
But before,
so it looks like...
Yeah.
Okay, so I think that's good comment. Now, just before we summarise and sign off, I think everyone's watching, and the common question for you guys, I think it is on everyone's mind, is, Tate, how do you get a girl like Kristen? Aren't you boxing above your weight a lot? Because I get this comment a lot with Lisa Novak. How do you handle that comment, Tate?
Oh, I just say she's blindsided, and I'm so lucky that she is.
Yeah, you have to dress up for that reason.
That's right.
It's got his 3-piece on.
Yeah, the 3-piece has to come out just to impress. I think I got to put on my 3-piece more.
You guys have any questions for us, just in general, before we wrap up?
I think what you guys are doing is great with the social media side. I think, it's cutting edge. It's different to what everyone else is doing in the marketplace at the moment. You guys really stand out. Not only have you become innovators in a very changing marketplace, but I think, you're showing the transition of the way real estate's going to be run in the future, which I think is really exciting. So people that are tuned in today are starting to see the scope of, I think, where the industry's going. And I think it's a commendation to you guys.
And the collaboration too, because it was a couple of years ago, I think I first met you and Lisa, Mark, and the reason I think I met you is because I said to Lisa Jemison, if you had to pick for me in Australia an agency I could go to and get some tips and tricks or innovating or the most compliant agency you possibly know, and she said you need to meet the Novaks. So good on you, Lisa Jemison.
Greg's on, actually. Greg Jemison.
Hey, Greg.
Greg's watching. Watch out.
I met Greg first, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to say, Mark, before we sign off?
Guys, love you guys. Good luck. Glad to hear business is going well. And what's very interesting for anyone who's watching is when times get tough economically, markets like people start seeking a tree change and people start seeking a sea change. And that's what I think we're seeing with you guys. And that's what I think with what we're seeing on the Northern Beaches. So it's sad for us to lose people out of the Northern Beaches to areas like yours or to Gosford or to Newcastle and those areas. But we also win on the other end because we get the guys coming from the inner city, North Shore to take up the market where people are moving out. Equally, you guys probably get people going further north and then they're selling out of where you are, but you're getting our guys. So it's a good opportunity market for people to improve their lives.
One really quick thing before we go that I think is really relevant with this too, Mark, is that migration's down from 350,000 to 157,000 now. So we're going to see a lot more local activity like this than ever before because we just don't have the migration coming into the country with COVID. So interesting times.
And that's national.
Awesome.
A national figure, was that? A national
Figure. Yeah.
Wow. That's big. Alrighty, guys.
Awesome.
Thank
All
you.
right, guys,
Thanks,
take
guys.
care.
Thank
you for your kind
Bye.
words.
Thanks.